So today it's my birthday, and I want to give myself a birthday present. I want to tell everybody about DEI. And I know you've heard it a bunch of times. You act like I'm clueless and don't know what I'm talking about. So it's time for me to name names, and that's my birthday present. In 1995, after I graduated high school, I couldn't afford college. Military wouldn't take me, and I didn't get any scholarships. There's lots of reasons for that, but point is I'm smart, and I ended up getting an education because I was forced to, and I got into a lot of educational debt from that. But that took years. It took years of having to deal with not being able to get a job where I can step up to be able to actually afford a living. Okay, we're gonna start with in '95. I started working for a temp company. That temp company I think was called TRC, but I can't remember exactly what it's called. But I took a job at a temp company, and I was told if I worked hard at whatever job they give me, then maybe I could get a step into a more permanent position. So I went to a place called Prudential Health. It's now Aetna, but I worked in the mailroom, and some people saw my industriousness. So a manager that knew that he was going to be moving out of his job, he wasn't a manager, he was an office manager, knew he was going to be moving out of his job. So he decided, hey, you know what? This kid's a real hard worker. Let me talk to him and see if I could teach him the job as a temp, and it will give him a better opportunity to get that job permanently. So I did that job for a while. I went into HR. I interviewed for the position. I was told that everyone was for me. But then the next day after the interview, I get a phone call, and I was told that from the temp company that I no longer had a job there, and I won't be continuing to work as a temp. So I had no idea why. Actually, what they didn't know is I knew some people at the company, and they happened to be very close friends with the HR manager, the director. And they asked around that HR manager, the director, and they told the director, yeah, we didn't give him the job because we were holding that job for a minority. Okay, 95, I'm 19 years old, find out that the first job I didn't get was because I wasn't a minority. I was completely okay with that. You know, everyone deserves to have a chance. So, you know what, maybe next time, not a big deal. Okay, so fast forward, I started applying for different jobs. This is, again, before the internet. I would show up to a job interview sometimes if I get it, and people were thinking because of my name is not exactly the most Anglican. It is, but anyway, I was not what they were expecting, so I wasn't given the job. It wasn't because I was a bad interviewer or anything. Fast forward, I get married. I'd been working jobs like security guard and working as a dishwasher, menial jobs you can think about, jobs that don't pay well at all. So every time I went to a job opportunity, a lot of times I didn't get the job. And I was actually a really good interviewer. I had no problem getting labor jobs. I had no problem with my interview skills. I had no problem getting bad paying jobs ever. It's just basically, oh wow, yeah, let's give you a try, and yeah, it's fine. But I would never move up in those companies, so I get tired of it. I move on. Well, I get married, and the job didn't work out for long term, so I went to work for the Hyatt Corporation. I happened to get a job as a security guard there because security is something that you could do a lot of hours because, the pay sucks, but the hours are good. You get a lot of overtime. So I took a job at the Hyatt. I was lucky to get the job. I didn't even realize how lucky till later on. Um, but one day, a couple months in, we had an issue where I basically had to watch people go in and out of the hotel, the service, the employee entrance. And I was doing my job. I'm supposed to check everybody on the way in and way out. And the general manager says to me, "You know what, Daryl? Hey, let's give these people a break. They actually work for a living. You're just security." So that really kind of hurt my feelings. So I went and I begged for a different job because so I could transfer. So I transferred to a job literally working in the stock room and working on the loading dock, because it gave me an opportunity to show how hard of a worker I was. In the interim, the hiring manager had changed his job, the guy who hired me. He ended up becoming an assistant restaurant manager there. And I said to him, it's like, you were a manager in HR and now you're a assistant restaurant manager. What's gives? He says, well, be honest with you, I didn't want to work in HR anymore. And I go, well, why don't you want to work in HR anymore? He says, well, because I gave you a job, I got wrote up. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, your job was supposed to go to a minority. Okay, so I got that job because someone else actually saw me as a good enough person to give me a chance, even at a job as security guard at a hotel. Okay, a Hyatt hotel. So I began to work this job on the loading dock, and I end up becoming the lead clerk. Basically, it's a responsible position that has a lot of. It's very important in the hotel, and in most Hyatts of that size, it would be a manager job. But at that particular Hyatt, it was not. So I would apply for manager jobs. And I would have a manager of like the food and beverage department or the executive chef both tell me, hey, I want you to take this job. It's an entry-level management job, and I'm going to support you in you getting those jobs. Well, both times, those jobs went to someone that wasn't, one was a female minority and the other one was another minority, someone who wasn't like me in that way. And neither one of them had that kind of responsibility of what I had done for the hotel. And again, these managers said that I was their first pick. So both of them tell me it was the Hyatt's board decision, hotel board decision to go with someone else. And it was pretty obvious why. So I said, you know what, screw that. I'm going to take it seriously. I'm going to go get my education. So I enrolled in school. First, I started out doing electronic networking. They take anybody into the program, but there's a point in the program it gets super hard, and I wasn't really able to stay, just wasn't that smart in that way. So I had said to my professor, I'm like, hey, you know what? All of a sudden, this class got super hard. Why is that? She says, oh, we do that to filter people out. I mean, you're probably good at something else, but, I mean, if you can't make it through this class and you're just not good. It's like, why would you do that? I spent all this money to get my education, and the college is basically saying, oh, well, move on. And, that's Florida State College, Jacksonville, by the way. So I went ahead and finished the degree by finding other classes besides that to finish it. It was just an associate anyway. So I took other stuff like server configuration and these things, and I barely made it through, but I made it through. And then I decided, you know what? I really love helping people, so let me go into this nursing program. Now, since I already had an AS, I couldn't get an AS in nursing, so I had to go for a bachelor's in nursing. So in Florida, you have two choices. You can either get the go to state university and pay a reasonable amount to go to school, or you could pay a private university and pay like well over $100,000 to become a nurse. And I couldn't afford that, and I had to get a bachelor's because I had already blew through any kind of help and financial aid, pre-financial aid or Pell Grants for that. So I went ahead and did all the prereqs for nursing I needed to do, and then when I went to apply for nursing programs, even though I had the GPA, again, and nursing is not what you would call a male-dominated job. I went to Jacksonville University, and I went to University of North Florida because they were both local, and I was working this whole time. Well, most of the time. So UNF said, you know what, we don't have any room right now. You're just going to have to wait and reapply. But JU did have it. JU had 8 spots. Okay. And 10 people were finalists. I was one of the 10 finalists. But I was the only American. I was the only male. And out of those 10 people, 8 of them were on student visas. Now, again, you can't work in Florida without a degree in nursing from Florida. So I was rejected for that. I couldn't wait around, so I finished my sociology degree and racked up more student debt. And then I went out in the working world, tried to get a job again with my college degree. People say, well, why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that? When you didn't get this college degree, why didn't you do that college degree? Nursing was the one that was supposed to be the one that's going to make me money that I could be good at, and I did do well in school. And it wasn't as hard as electronic engineering, at least what I was doing, or network engineering that I originated with. And so I had a choice. I could either try some new different vocational bachelor's, or I could finish in a sociology degree, because that is the closest degree I could have got with the credits I had earned at that point. So I went ahead and finished with a sociology degree with a minor in business management. Remember, I had electronic background, because even though I wasn't good at the networking part, I was really good at not network engineering. I was really good with the hardware, the computer, and basic IT stuff that most IT people do today, especially support technicians. I even did get a job as a temp with Apple. Apple probably wouldn't have hired me as a full-time employee for the obvious reasons, but I was perfectly acceptable to work as an iOS technical support person with Kelly Services for I think it was $9 an hour at the time. So here I am. I couldn't get a lot of jobs because of what I've already explained to you. I go ahead and I pull some strings because I do know some people, and I ended up getting a job at a hospital that my wife actually had cancer. This is around the same time she was going through cancer. She had just basically had the final surgery and chemo, and I was able to get a job at that hospital. Well, at that hospital, I was working in registration, ER, and OB admitting. Once again, I was a minority in my department, where it's white, straight white male guy. And I tried to work myself there. I was there for a few years. And when I discovered that, I didn't realize this, but I kept on trying to move up there as well. And every manager in that part of the healthcare of that hospital, the Baptist Medical Center, the people who are in charge of the finance, the stuff that registration people do, were all LGBTQRS people. which, again, I had no problem with them being that. But they were gatekeeping, so only their people could go get those jobs. So there's no diversity in management there. So Baptist Medical, same thing. There's this idea that we somehow, us people like me, someone my skin tone, straight white male, have some secret handshake we do to get these great jobs. It's not true. We just have people that look like us that know people or get education or are upper middle class or have the military officers, or people that become upper middle class because of those type of connections that they make from opportunities. But people like me, union jobs, forget about a union job, not a public union job, but private union job, because you have to know somebody to even get a job in the union. So anyway, I end up leaving Baptist Medical Center, and there's a lot of stuff there I don't want to go through, but in all those positions, I always felt like it was never good enough. There was always something wrong with me, and I feel like I was really gaslit. And I think a lot of people like me feel that way. So eventually I got into sales, and it was auto sales. Only one of the few jobs that pays well, where basically they'll take anybody. So I got into sales. I wanted to be a teacher too, but my wife had already been a teacher in Florida, and teachers in Florida get paid far less than teachers like here in Texas where I live. So it's really hard to make a living on two teachers in Florida. There has to be someone who makes more. And we were doing pretty good when I sold cars, but I mean, selling cars wasn't bad, but it was just as bad. Everybody's backstabbing each other. The finance manager will literally screw every single salesperson they work with so they could make more money. Basically, you're told that there's a profit that you'll get your commission on a vehicle, and once they get out of finance, that profit, it's no longer there, so you get what's called a mini, which is usually far less than what you get if you actually earn the commission. And you find out later that the finance manager, the reason why is the finance manager took it for their commission because they reorganized. Look, car dealerships, if you think you're getting screwed when you buy a car, you're getting, the employee that sells the car is getting bigger screwed than anybody else. It's by the finance and the management. That is a toxic relationship. If you've ever seen one, I worked for AutoNation. I worked for another company that's really big, that's publicly traded. I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically, it's called Coggin in Florida. But both times, I mean, those people, no, you have to sell your soul, and you gotta be willing to really screw people over if you ever want to make it in car business on retail sales. Anyway, I ended up here in Texas because I listened to the wrong person at AutoNation, and I think that was a good thing. Not because I like Texas, but teachers get paid way more than they do Florida. So I finally was able to make my dream come true when it comes to teaching, at least. I had a lot more aspirations. I wanted to go to law school. I wanted to do all kinds of stuff, but that stuff never happened. And that stuff never happened. Not because I wasn't capable. It's because no matter what I did, I was always judged based off of what I look like. I had nothing to do with it. And it's bullshit that people today, 2025, still think that judging people by their skin tone, or whether they're white, male, or purple, or green, is right. DEI, racism, sexism, it's a poison. It's a poison and people are still swallowing it up. I don't understand. I just don't understand.